Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Edna.
And I'm Harminder Singh. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Rival lawmakers try to mend ties over extradition amendments but give up after only 20 minutes.
Joshua Wong returns to jail but for a shorter stay after lodging appeal over Occupy protest.
Law Reform Commission calls for a bystander offence to enhance protection for children and the vulnerable.
20 minutes. That's all it took for a meeting between rival legislators to break up in acrimony without any progress in ending a stalemate over extradition law amendments.
The pro-establishment camp denounced what they called a public relations stunt by the Pan-Democrats, who threw the ball back into the court of Chief Executive Carrie Lam. Each camp sent 4 representatives to the peace talks at the Legislative Council building this morning. But the meeting ended in failure after just 20 minutes. The two sides agreed to meet face-to-face after scuffles disrupted 2 recent rival committee meetings to vet the controversial extradition law amendments. Martin Liao, the convener of the pro-establishment camp, accused the Pan-Democrats of not being sincere. He said they kept insisting on 2 demands: the withdrawal of the bill and acceptance of Democrat James Toh as Bill's committee chairman.
We feel that we don't really need a meeting to discuss this because they knew our answers. Our answers have been articulated before members of the press and in public. And I don't think, and therefore I do not believe that they had the sincerity to conduct a serious negotiation. And this is just a PR show.
Claudia Mo targeted the chief executive while dismissing Liao's claims, saying the Pan-Democrats have always made their position clear.
I'm not surprised at all with the Beijing loyalists' response that they would just say no and no to our 2 points presented. But I would like to stress that the ball is now indeed in Carrie Lam's court because she's the starter of this entire saga, this very control saga that's been polarizing our society. And she needs to be reminded that a capable leader must be able to lead the people out of any impossible situation like the current deadlock, impasse and stalemate. And she couldn't just keep standing in the mud.
Mo also said her rival's proposal to set up another committee to discuss the amendments is illogical and a waste of time.
Carrie Lam says she's not withdrawing the controversial extradition amendment bill, pointing out that it'll be almost impossible to do so. Speaking in Guangzhou, the chief executive insisted that the changes are needed to plug a loophole. Lam hopes the Democrats will have a change of heart and start to scrutinize the proposed legislation. She adds that Beijing's support for the amendments is normal.
Democracy activist Joshua Wong is back in prison after appealing against his jail sentence for violating an injunction order during the 2014 Occupy protests.
But the Court of Appeal cut his 3-month jail term by 1 month. Yupina reports.
Accompanied by his supporters, Joshua Wong arrived in court this afternoon to hear the result of his appeal. He had violated an injunction order during the 2014 Occupy protests and was convicted of criminal contempt. The 22-year-old appealed against his 3-month jail sentence.
I hope supporters of Umbrella Movement will show the spirit of the Umbrella Movement and continue our fight.
The 3-judge Court of Appeal panel said Wong's action was a serious and deliberate obstruction to officials executing the injunction order. It is an affront to the court and must be met with a deterrent sentence, the judges said. Wong cited civil disobedience, but the judges said that did not mitigate his culpability and the seriousness of his criminal contempt. The panel agreed with the lower court ruling to sentence Wong immediately, despite his young age, saying it is the only appropriate way. But they pointed that the trial judge did not give weight to Wong's age while sentencing. They said that and personal circumstances should determine the length of imprisonment. The starting point of Wong's imprisonment should be 3 months, but the judges deducted 1/3 because the former student leader admitted the offense. They also took into account his acceptance of the legal consequences, an apology to the court, which they called the strongest mitigation. Wong's sentence was reduced to 2 months. His political party, Demosisto, was disappointed with the outcome.
We believe that all kinds of non-violence and peaceful civil disobedience and all of the participants and social activists should not be prosecuted by the government, and we are only fighting for the change and democracy of the society.
Yupinam, HKIBC.
The Law Reform Commission has recommended the introduction of a so-called bystander offence to better protect children or vulnerable adults. It proposed a maximum penalty of 20 years jail in fatal cases.
It is hoped that having this new offence on the statute book would have a significant effect on the community. This offence is essentially about a duty to care. The message would be that if you have a child or the care of a vulnerable adult, you are responsible for protecting that person. And if you do not take responsibility seriously, you expose yourself to potential criminal liability.